in 68 and 70 have won the tournament 4 good times, something that no other African nation has been able to do.
It's the Africa Cup of Nations 1992. Ghana's Black Stars have shown incredible form and great resolve to reach the final of the competition. They are just a win away from ending their 10-year wait for the title, but they're going to have to do it without their star man and Africa's best player, Abedi Ayew Pele, who picked up a yellow card in the semi-final against rivals Nigeria. Standing before them is Cote d'Ivoire, who are also looking for their first ever title. After a cagey affair ends goalless after 120 minutes, the game will be decided by a penalty shootout.
Will take the kick. The beginning of the penalty shootout to decide who will win the African Nations Cup of 1992.
10 years prior, the Black Stars were in the same position and were victorious against Libya to claim their 4th Afcon title. Can this talented Ghana squad bring back the spirit of '82 and claim their 5th crown?
You know, we had pillars like Anthony Yeboah in the team. We had great defenders like Ama Senegal, Frimpong Manso, you know, and the young Odata Lamte. And then, of course, Prince Polly, who was also a great striker, and many others. But Abedi was the player of the tournament. And of course, he added that bit of quality, that bit of detail to change or to win a match. But at the end of the day, he couldn't play, and we still had our opportunities to score. But what should have happened for us didn't happen.
Successful penalties out of 5 so far. Nawu will take the next one for Ghana. He came on as a substitute. And he's found the net as well. 3-3.
We were reasonably confident, but this was also a strong Ivorian team, you know. So Ghanaians were very hopeful. We know how much we love our football, and this was the first time we were going into the final in the past decade, because since we had won in Libya in 1982, we hadn't done very well in the African Cup of Nations, and we had brought in a new coach from Germany, and also the fact that Ansan was a very, very reputable goalkeeper, and that save that he made, we thought it was going to affect the nerves of the Ivorian players who were coming to take their penalties. But this was a marathon penalty shootout. I mean, I don't think it's ever happened in the history of competitive football across the world stage, where all the penalty takers had to go through and the reserves, and then we start all over again. You know, so it was a very complicated situation.
After a long and nerve-gripping shootout, which for the first time in a major international final sees every player on the pitch take a penalty, Ghana's captain on the night, Anthony Bafu, steps up with a score 11-10 in favour of the Ivorians, needing to score to keep Ghana in it.
Psychologically, one feels that winning the toss to get the first penalty has given the Ivory Coast a big advantage here, because each time they score, of course, the pressure's on Ghana to make sure that they equalise. Bafo's got to score this one. He's missed it! The Ivory Coast!
When we lost, it was a disaster by all standards. So people were very unhappy. We were ranked, I think, much higher than Cote d'Ivoire at the time. You know, as usual, Ghanaians don't take defeat very well. But I think that they had a soft spot for Tony, because he was not known locally, and so I think he wasn't bashed quite as much as recently we saw what happened to our former captain, Samoa Jan.
Has the opportunity to send Ghana into the semi-finals of the World Cup, and he hits the bar. unbelievable. What a miss.
To go and take a penalty, you need balls. This is what it is. I was captain the team in the finals, and I was very sure that I'm going to score. But the unfortunate thing happened. It's painful, but I think up till today I say better me than any young player who could have maybe, it could have harmed him much more. Once again, you feel sad because you would have loved to lift the cup and bring it back home, because I think at that time, I don't know if you were born, we went to the final after, I think, almost 10 years of absence. And the way Ghanaians received us in Ghana, it was like, what would have happened if we would have won the Afcon? But you see, so if people don't know who I am, I always told them I was the one who missed the penalty, 92, so they remember.
Unknown to Ghanaian football fans, this will be the beginning of their toxic relationship with the now dreaded enemy, the penalty shootout.
Star of the World Under-20 Championships. And this is saved as well. That is
Aqua. Saved by Boubacar Barry.
Since that night in Dakar, Ghana's Black Stars have gone on to lose all of their subsequent 4 penalty shootouts in major competitions, 3 in the Afcon and 1 at the FIFA World Cup. And the problem hasn't only persisted with the Black Stars. Ghana's male national teams have won just 13 out of 30 penalty shootouts with a success rate of just 43%. That number drops to a measly 18% when considering Ghanaian clubs' success rate from penalty shootouts in continental competition, winning just 4 in 22 attempts. Ghana's under-20 side, the Black Satellites, have provided almost half of the country's national team victories with 6. It's no surprise they have produced the most high-profile penalty shootouts victory in recent years, the 2009 FIFA Under-20 World Cup.
Is it Africa? It
is! Victories like this, however, have eluded the country more often than not.
Do for yourself, you do back, do for yourself.
The idea of the morning penalty shootout is credited to Israeli Yusuf Dagan, who gave the proposition after seeing his national team crash out of the 1968 Olympic quarterfinals due to the drawing of lots. Yes, a coin toss. In the past, tied games used to be decided by either a coin toss or a replay. But the coin tosses were deemed unfair and it was attributed solely to luck, and replays, on the other hand, were time-consuming and also cost more to the organizers. Penalty shootouts were therefore seen as a great way to combat these difficulties while obtaining a fair result also. The Israeli FA, with backing by Malaysia's FA refereeing committee, led the move for its adoption by FIFA. After discussions, the International Football Association Board adopted the proposal on 27 June 1970, and the art of penalties has seen much evolution since its inception. Penalty expert and author of 12 Yards, an all-encompassing look on the penalty kick, Ben Littleton, breaks down the evolution of penalty kicks over the years.
So it's really interesting seeing how penalty kicks have changed in terms of shootouts in major tournaments. The first penalty shootout we saw was in the 1982 World Cup semi-final between France and West Germany. And the state of the players, the goalkeeper tactics, the way the shootout played out is so different to what we see now. It's really fascinating. And back then, the first player to miss a penalty in a shootout was a German player, Uli Stieleke, and his response to missing the shootout really, I think, set the tone for shootouts going forward, even to today, because he kicked the penalty, it was saved, and then he just fell to the ground and curled up in a ball like he was a baby again. And it had this power that this huge, powerful, strong athlete who's just run and kicked for 120 minutes can be reduced to this childlike, scary state. So a lot of the work that's being done now is around data and analytics of where players like to take their penalties, where goalkeepers like to dive to save their penalties, but also around body language and how we respond to missed penalties, how teammates respond to their players if they've missed, where they stand in the center circle, how they respond to pressure moments in their careers, because this is what it comes down to. If you're a professional player representing your country in football, you should be able to score a free shot from 12 yards. It's one of the easiest things, one of the simplest things in football. But the fact that so many players miss, and so many of the top players miss, mean that there's more to it than just technique. It is about psychology, it's about performing under pressure, and it's about preparing properly and practicing with purpose. And that's something that's very important and is often not done by top teams.
The penalty has moved away from merely a shot of chance from 12 yards to a carefully planned, thought through and developed art.
In terms of how accurate the data is, the numbers don't lie. And so we can look at what a player has done with his previous penalties, and that is fact. That is objective fact. What we can't do is predict where they're going to kick the next penalty. And that is where lots of other things come into play. And if he's missed the last penalty, he's more likely to change his direction of the penalty. So if you miss to one side, you're more likely to go for the other side on your next penalty. That doesn't mean he's guaranteed to go. So this idea that a goalkeeper is given a list and is told, here are 5 penalty takers, this one's going to go to this way, this one's going to kick right, this one's going to kick left, this one's going to go central, is very binary and very unlikely to be correct, because players have preferences, but it doesn't mean that they are always going to go to that corner. And you just don't know. And if a goalkeeper moves early, which De Gea often does when it comes to penalty kicks, the kicker will simply kick in the other direction and therefore make the data information that he's got useless. It doesn't matter. If the goalkeeper moves too early, it's irrelevant where he's going to go. So it's about how you use that data information and what you do with it.
Another important part of the shootout is the psychology and mental toughness of the player.
A free shot from 12 yards can be hard because the temptation for distraction can enter into an athlete's mind. Neuroscience and psychology has proved that the brain behaves differently under conditions of anxiety. When athletes are first learning movements for real, they use a very conscious area of their brain called the ventral stream. When they become expert at their field, in their chosen task, a different area of the brain is activated, and that's called the dorsal stream. So when an athlete performs under conditions of potential pressure, anxiety literally switches a different area of the brain into action. And it turns what should be an effortless, fluent, expert, natural movement into something that can feel very awkward, very difficult, and very complex. Normally that happens because athletes overthink the situation. In psychology, there's a term called paralysis through analysis. And that means that I can overthink, overcomplicate the moment in its simplicity.
There are players, even you don't need even come to penalties. Before the games, they're very nervous. I had roommates who were always going to toilet back and forth, you know. So everybody and his type, but in that very moment, of course, you have, like you're going for exams. You have butterflies in your stomach.
Many players have been said to have shied away from taking penalty kicks due to their inability to handle the sheer magnitude of pressure that it comes with.
You know, the difficult thing in football is when they leave you alone with the goalkeeper, like a penalty kick. It's a very difficult thing to go for. But when he came, I asked David Ade, he said no. I asked Opoku Ajimai, he said no. I said, my brothers, you are even playing. At that time, David was playing Randers in Denmark. Opoku was in Qatar. I said, brother, if you spoil it, you can pass Egypt to Qatar in just 2 hours. Me, I need to fly to Accra, pick a car to Kumasi at that time, brother. Either I will be dead or my family, something will happen.
Some of the guys that day, after 120 minutes,
of course,
dead legs, and some of the guys were like, "Hey, I cannot play. I'm scared." You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, hey, I don't go if he play.
Yeah.
Hey, mean to me, ball.
But then again, would you blame one for opting out when a missed penalty could result in years of abuse and mental torture?
Edward Sapa Rastaman throw one stone. Go! Running down for Jesus. Acquire Joe.
Say everything. But destroy everything. And now we can lose comfortably. Now we can lose comfortably.
1999, Ghana was one kick away from a place in the semi-final of the FIFA Under-20 World Cup against Spain. But unfortunately, Captain Hamza Mohamed missed and the Black Satellites went on to lose the shootout. Former Black Stars midfielder Laye Kinson, who was part of that team, shares an interesting conversation that ensued between the players after Hamza's missed effort.
After Hamza finish, we come now, we go next one. We Spain go score. So it's Blaze 10. We 10 look at us and say, Hamza, wait, Jimmy, maybe because send no.
So what's the ideal way to prepare for a shootout with all the external factors in mind?
Some teams say they practice penalties after training, and that might involve every player grabbing a ball, standing on the edge of the penalty area, and when there's a free moment, when no one's on the penalty spot, just dribbling the ball and taking a penalty, no pressure, and you do that 3 or 4 times, you score 3 out of 3, you feel like you're ready. That is not how you prepare for a penalty shootout, because a penalty shootout is a pressure situation where you've played 120 minutes of intense football. So for a start, you need to practice penalties after a 120-minute training session. So you're used to the fatigue in your legs. Yeah. Then you need to add a competition element to it, because standing around and just taking a penalty is not the same. These guys are athletes. I know it's not the same as a big tournament, but if there's an element of competition, that helps. And then you have to practice the walk, which is one of the things that players often dread the most. Yeah. So you need to wait in the center circle, walk to the spot without the ball, because the ball is down by the goal. So often the players clutch the ball like a comfort blanket, like a teddy bear. This is something they're used to. They've had their whole life. They feel very comfortable when they've got a ball at their feet or in their hand, quite understandably. But if you're walking 40, 50 yards without a ball at your feet, when your legs are really tired and there's a bit of competition going on in the background, I don't know, the loser buys dinner or the loser has to clean the boots, whatever it is, these guys are athletes, they love competition. Then you are adding elements that make it more realistic, because you're practicing with purpose.
We lost by penalty shootout. I would say the luckiest side won.
That was then Black Stars captain Asamoah Gyan, after Ghana were beaten 4-2 on penalties by Burkina Faso in the semi-final of Afcon 2013. That defeat was the Black Stars' third successive shootout loss and the second in the space of 3 years, after losing to Uruguay in the World Cup quarter-final back in 2010. 2 years later, Ghana lost yet another shootout, this time an Afcon final against familiar foes Cote d'Ivoire. Ghana raced to a 2-goal lead after the Ivorians missed their first 2 kicks, and yet somehow the Black Stars still lost. Frankie Champon, who was deemed one of the country's best penalty takers at the time, was brought on specifically for the shootout, but he missed.
It's more of like he always scored though.
Right.
But with a little bit of
joking around.
We call it keche.
Keche, right.
So the person that told him that was Jordan Ayew.
In training?
During the game. when he was going to take it.
Oh, really?
Yes. No keche, don't go and do keche for that, because obviously he does the keche.
Right.
You know what I mean? But he scores. You know, he scores at training all the time. So obviously when you're in a game, you know, like
it's a serious stuff.
You locked in. And it's not like, you know, in training. Obviously you joke around in training, but you score. This time you have, if it's 50,000, it's 70,000, you know, in front of them.
So as he's walking, Jordan shouts to him.
You know, before he even gets up to go, Jordan is like, bro, please, no keche. Please, don't go and do it, please. You know, this is finals.
Of course.
We had not won, you know, we haven't won it, you know. It was like, what, 29 or 30 years that time, 15? So, you know, we wanted to win it.
So, Mensah insinuated nerves for the 2015 defeat, and Jan attributed the 2013 loss to Burkina Faso to bad luck. But when does one draw the line between bad luck and poor preparation? Statistically, the most frequently scored kick in a shootout is the second kick, with a miss percentage of 25.3, while the most difficult kick is the third kick, with the highest miss percent of 28.1. With this information in mind, let's consider Ghana's shootout defeats to Uruguay and Cote d'Ivoire in 2010 and 2015 respectively. The third kickers on those occasions in John Mensah and Efriye Akwa were among the most inexperienced from the sport, with both having never taken a penalty kick from open play in their professional careers before those shootouts. So why assign statistically the most difficult kick to two inexperienced penalty takers? That begs the question of who assigns players their turns as penalty kickers. Herald News was the Black Stars assistant coach at the 2015 Afcon, and he narrates how that decision was made.
Obviously, all the players that they were in the national team, I'm sure all the players that are right now or in the next games, they have high-level qualities and skills, so all of them, they can shoot. So if they want to shoot there, they can shoot there. It's not a question about ability or skills to do so. But even more important, under those circumstances, the pressure and is the mental side. And that's why many times coaches, we allow the players to, in those moments, to say, okay, let's see which one steps up and decide, I want to take it. Because that kind of trust, that kind of encouragement or determination is something that you cannot even predict 100%. It's a matter of, okay, I felt well during the game, I'm not too tired, so I'm going to make it. I'm going to score. As soon as you see that on the eyes of the players, then you feel more happy than even sometimes players that, you know, that they are better players maybe, you know. But be confident, it's a massive thing.
So that does not work for me. I have to say, the job of a coach is to prepare the team for every eventuality. So plan A would be to win the match in regulation time, right, in 90 minutes. Plan B might be we have to win it in extra time if it goes to it. So then you have to prepare for plan C, which might be a shootout. So before the game, the plan has to be, if every player is fully fit and we have our A team on the pitch, who are going to be the 5 players who take the penalties? What order are they going to take them in? And you decide this before the game. And where are they going to shoot their penalties? Because what you want to do is take out as many big decisions as you can from the emotional situation. So if you can think about that a week before the game, 5 days before, even the day before, one of the biggest things that go when you're in a pressure situation are your decision-making faculties. They wobble. You make bad decisions in a pressure situation. Yeah. So if you can make those decisions before the pressure comes, and then you just stick to them when the pressure is on, it makes much more sense. And all these things that go into it improve your chances of success. So when I see coaches in a huddle after extra time saying, who wants one? And a player will put up his hand. I always worry. I always fear that they're going to come off second best because they are not the teams that are prepared properly for the shootout.
But the problem doesn't only lie at the feet of the kickers. Black Stars goalkeepers have saved just one of 37 attempts they have faced from the 1992 Afcon till date, a save percentage of just 2.7%. That single save came courtesy Fatal Dauda in the 2013 Afcon semi-final shootout against Burkina Faso, which Ghana still lost. Legendary goalkeeper Edward Ansah was in goal for Ghana during the 92 Afcon final against Cote d'Ivoire, where he failed to save a single shot from 12 attempts he faced.
The fact of the matter is that there were a lot of us who felt that once we were heading towards a penalty shootout, the coach should have changed it and brought in, I think Salifu Ansah was the other, there were two other goalkeepers. Edward Ansah throughout his time, I mean, he was at the top of his game with the Hearts of Oak, went to Nigeria to play, I think, stationery stores, and he was also a top goalkeeper in Nigeria before he came back to Ghana. I'm not sure whether it was in Wanyahu National or Stationery Stores, one of the top teams in Nigeria at the time. And then he came back to Ghana and then to Kumasi Asante Kotoko. And he was not known to be good at penalties. He was a very alert goalkeeper, very agile, difficult to beat on shots and all that. But his penalties was his weakness. This was something that was known.
However, former Black Stars head coach Otto Pfister, who was in charge at the 1992 Afcon, insists players must take more responsibility and believes Eddie Ansah should have done better during the penalty shootout.
Then also, in this final, it's a football, you have a lot to reason. Yeah, then it's normal. Then in the end of the day, the mistake is from the coach. But players have also a big responsibility. It is not easy. In the penalty kick, Ansah also, he was not 100% concentrated. He have one. Maybe if he have one save, we win the cup.
But according to Fatal Dauda, it's not just a guess game. He believes a deliberate attempt must be made to help goalkeepers adapt to the modern demands of the game. The art of saving penalty kicks is now seen as a skill. Take the 2014 World Cup in Brazil, for example. Netherlands head coach Louis van Gaal, in the quarter-final against Costa Rica, substituted goalkeeper Jasper Cillessen for his number 2 Tim Krul in the last minute of extra time. Krul went on to save 2 kicks as the Dutch beat the Costa Ricans to book their place in the semi-final. Unfortunately for the Dutch, they had used up all their subs in the semi-final against Argentina, and Krul, in effect, could not come on for the shootout. The Dutch crashed out as Cillessen failed to save a single kick. With that in mind, should the young Daniel Ejay, who was Ghana's penalty hero in the final of the Under-20 World Cup, have come on for Richard Kingston, who had a poor penalty save percentage going into the shootout in 2010 against Uruguay? Again, Fatal Dauda's penalty record was superior to that of Razak Brahima at the 2015 Afcon final, but Brahima was maintained for the shootout. Could these changes have increased Ghana's winning chances? And what's the psychology and science behind changing goalkeepers just before a shootout?
When it comes to goalkeeper substitutions, there are so few examples of it that the sample size is really small. I personally support it, and people I've spoken to in this field think there's something very valid in it. Even if the penalty record of the goalkeeper coming on is not better than the goalkeeper they are replacing, the switch itself puts a seed of doubt in the other team's mind that there must be a reason for this. So they must be bringing on a penalty specialist. Now, if you're faced with a penalty specialist, you think subconsciously that to score a penalty, instead of kicking it in the 80th percentile of the corner, you have to kick it in the 90th percentile of the corner. Therefore, you're pushing it a little bit further. And it's becoming slightly more normalized. And the smart coaches, in fact, ones that I've also spoken to about this, including the Chelsea coach Thomas Tuchel, do this and don't turn it into a big deal. So when Tuchel was faced with his first shootout as Chelsea coach, he took off Mendy and he brought on Kepa, and Kepa won the shootout. And he said, very simply, after the game, my stats guys looked at the numbers. I spoke to Mendy and I spoke to Kepa about it. And that's the crucial thing. Every player in the team has to buy into this. So you are trying to optimize your performance to give your team the best chance of winning the match. This is not about egos. It's about winning a trophy for your team or going as far as you can for your team.
Research and information on the opposition goes a long way in helping goalkeepers make decisions when faced with penalty kicks. But in the case of Ghana, how much of the problem lies with the keeper's skill in saving as compared to the level of preparation provided?
So in 2010, which was really at the start of the analytics revolution, and not every team knew about the patterns and trends of certain players, but I was aware of what was going on around penalty kicks at that time. And the last penalty that Uruguay took against Ghana in that dramatic quarter-final was Sebastian Abreu against Richard Kingston. And Abreu needed to score the penalty to send Uruguay through to the semi-finals. Yeah. And as I watched Abreu spot the ball, I was praying that Richard Kingston would know what was coming, because Abreu was famous in South America for kicking his penalties a certain way. It wasn't what we now call a panenka. In South America, they call it a paragenia, which is a little stop. And it's like a panenka in that it goes down the middle of the goal, but it's a little bit faster. But it's simply a kick down the middle of the goal. And Abreu had scored about 25 out of 29 penalties using this method. Everyone in Uruguay knew about it. Everyone in South America probably knew about it. And I was praying that the Ghanaian goalkeeper, of all people, would know about it. So, of course, you get to this crucial situation in the shootout. Abreu starts his run-up. As he approaches the ball, Kingston dives, and Abreu chips it down the middle. And my head is in my hands. I can only imagine what the real Ghanaian fans were thinking at that moment. It's a really good example of, if you had the data, and if you had done the preparation, and if you had done the research, that goalkeeper would have known to stay down the middle for that penalty. Now, it might not have meant that Ghana would have gone on to win that shootout, but it gives them more of a chance. And that's all we're trying to do here, is improve the team's chances. Because if you do no preparation, if you don't practice with purpose, if you think that shootouts are a lottery, if you just go with whatever players feel brave at that moment and let them make all the decisions, that's not going to improve your chances of winning a shootout, of making history, of lifting a trophy, all these things that are holding you back. You have to try and get every possible edge you can. Take it really seriously are often led by coaches who have suffered penalty traumas themselves. And England is a very good example. I'm a proud Englishman. The reason I wrote my book, 12 Yards, is because England, like Ghana, have struggled with penalties for so long in the past. And before the 2018 World Cup, I know that England took penalty preparation incredibly seriously. They reviewed all the research articles about it. They analysed over 5,000 penalties. They met with every player to talk about their own psychology and how they felt about penalties and whether they were anxious or whether they enjoyed it. Some people see it as a threat to their career and some people see it as a massive opportunity. So that idea of understanding your players was really important.
As a result, England went on to register their first penalty shootout win in 22 years. The Black Stars head into another Afcon in January with the aim of ending the country's 40-year wait for the trophy. With the all-too-familiar pain of the penalty shootout defeat in 2019 still fresh in the minds of Ghanaians, Technical Director of the Ghana Football Association, Bernard Lepet, outlines plans being put in place to improve the penalty struggles of the team ahead of the tournament in Cameroon.
I'm sure about this, yes. I'm here together with our video analyst, who is a part of the technical department. They check all the goalkeepers. We have also a plan of our penalty takers, I'm sure about this. And we make a lot of statistics. But more you cannot do. You can video analysis is a big part of this, and we check the other teams and we check our teams, our penalty takers, and then we have to decide the 5 best ones. But of course there is a plan, and the goalkeepers are informed about the opponents. Much more you cannot do. I told it before. I don't believe. Maybe Milo or a national team coach will train this. Sometimes you can do this, of course, to find maybe also the players with the best shooting technique. You have to see this sometimes in training. But much more you cannot do, in my opinion.
Though these plans are for a short-term purpose, Leopards believes a more sustainable approach is to involve penalties and mental training into the curriculum of grassroots football in Ghana.
This is, in the end, everything what you miss here. It's organization, structure, and not only in a theoretical way, to bring it in place with youth academies, to go this pathway, and then you have much bigger possibilities than Germany, who won 4 times the World Championship. And I'm absolutely sure about this. You have players here with a natural talent you can never find in Germany. But there is nothing organized and nothing structured. So I think if we can bring these structures in place, and here I also mean our professional team, the Premier League clubs, we should work on this, that they build their own academies on a high level, to write their own programs, their own philosophy, and lead a player from a very young age to the first team. Then we will be very, very successful in Ghana. I'm absolutely sure about this. But it is work, and it doesn't happen from today to tomorrow. So you need time, 5, 7, 10 years. This is the reason that I sometimes don't believe that the people want to wait for this. Because you have to start on the foundation. And it's not easy to start with a foundation from nothing.
The penalty shootout for years has haunted Ghana football at both club and international level. But time always gives one the opportunity to prepare better and hopefully succeed. And Ghana has time. The question is, will the work be put in to hopefully end this menacing trend?
Baby,